Welcome everyone. This is a build showcase for a Infernalist variant to Jung's popular Blink Autobomber, which he originally done on the Blood Mage. Basically, we're using the Infernalist Ascendancy tree to make some cool little twists to the original setup. For a quick recap for anyone that isn't aware of the original build, basically it uses the unique chest Temporalis, which reduces Blink's cooldown to basically nothing. Then coupling that with the Choir of Storm's amulet, which casts lightning bolts on crit, and then a whole bunch of cast on effects, particularly on dodge, to trigger said lightning bolts. You can basically see a little bit of a showcase running through a difficulty 4 level Zesh breach here on the way to the boss. And if we actually jump ahead, we can actually have a look at the boss fight as well. Just loading up now. And done. So basically, as I said, this build was originally made popular by Jung. This is the original setup. I'll add a link to the video. But basically, as you can see here, this is the aforementioned Temporalis chess piece. The key line being the skills have a reduction to their cooldown, coupled with Choir of Storms, which triggers lightning bolts on crit hit. And then basically a whole bunch of cast on effects, especially cast on dodge. The one thing that the original setup requires in order to support the spirit requirements for all of these cast on effects as well as blink is a scepter. Particularly a scepter, I believe, that needs 160 spirit total. What we've actually done is we utilize the Infernalist node here, which reserves a portion of our life to get spirit while stacking life to get basically the required spirit that we need in order to make the setup work rather than use a scepter. What that allows us then to do, one little cool twist to the original build, as I mentioned before, is to, well, basically run anything we want in the offhand. This allows us in particular to run the Omen unique shield here. I don't know how to pronounce the name properly, but basically you can stack a whole bunch of rarity. This is a very cheap version of the item. You can get 3 sockets, so you can get, I think, in the vicinity of about 200 item rarity from this. This currently, I think, provides about 130, even this cheap version. Alternatively, you can even just run this is again another just cheap little option that I was testing out for bossing, but you can basically run anything in the offhand. You can boost the DPS a bit more, or you can run rarity. So that's the key benefit. The other benefit is, or a slight little variation to the original build, is we run all 3 reservations, which bump us down into low life, because 3 25% reservations put us below the low life cap, and that allows us to pick up this cast speed node as opposed to overzealous, which the original setup uses, which incurs a bit of a penalty, the mana cost, which is tricky to manage on the Infernalist. So that's another little benefit. The passive tree, just quickly while we have it open, this will give you an idea. We basically pass through some energy shield nodes. We are stacking energy shield. We pick up any crit based nodes along the way. A whole bunch of high quality crit nodes here. Lightning damage. We get Eternal Youth to be able to refill our energy shield on demand with our life flasks. This node here is particularly important for the meta skills, gain 15% extra energy. We use, when we go over the abilities in a moment, one of the cast on effects for dodge requires that extra little bit of energy boost to basically cast spark fully on a single dodge, otherwise you need to dodge twice. So this is an important node. Bit more crit. Mana recovery on spell invocation, very handy, as well as it boosting damage on the triggered spells. Everything basically is triggered in this build. More energy shield, high value int nodes, crit, lightning damage, energy shield. We're critting a very substantial amount, so we pick up chance to Arcane Surge on crit hit, as well as boosting its effect, just to get a bit more cast speed and mana regen. We run Mind Over Matter just as a bit of a backup health pool. Helps with poison and bleeds. Technically, you can potentially get away with not using this, but so experiment on your own. And then just a bit of elemental resistance and a bit of elemental damage here. So that pretty much covers the passive tree. In terms of the differences to the original, as I mentioned, we pick up this node rather than this one. We pass through these energy shield nodes here, and that pretty much is the only difference. And we drop these this crit-based cluster here simply because we just didn't have the points for it, so that can be an extra for later. Gearing wise, Temporalis, obviously the key piece. The most important thing you want to look for here is having the cooldown reduction be, I think it's beyond what you need to cover Blink's cost. You have a quick look at Blink. Whatever cooldown time you have on Blink there, I've got 3.6, so I've only got a level 18. I believe that gets further reduced if you can get it higher level. But basically you want to cover that cooldown time. I'm not sure how the interaction works with the Ingenuity support gem, whether that can push it down further and you only need a lower roll, but that's about it. Other key pieces are this helmet, pretty much just we're stacking max life, so extra energy shield from that, rarity roll, which is handy as well. And the key thing we really need here in terms of this Infernalist setup, to get this spirit that we need, is that +2 spirit corruption, so that's important. Firestorm's the other key piece, triggering lightning bolts on crit hit. Everything else is flexible, although if you have the budget for it, very highly recommended to get Ingenuity, because one thing that this build revolves around, or this variant, is stacking enough max life so that our Ascendancy conversion to energy shield gets us over 220 spirit. So we need 220 spirit. So whatever spirit you can get on this corruption, plus the, I believe it's 25. So whatever your max life is divided by 25, you need to get enough max life coupled with that helmet to hit 220. Very quickly, just to explain why that is. Blink needs 60, cast on dodge needs 100, and cast on shock, which we use another small twist to the original build, they use cast on crit. Basically it's just too hard to get the spirit for cast on crit, so we use cast on shock and it just works just fine as an alternative. But basically that 60, 160 adds up to 220. So going back to my original point of why Ingenuity helps a lot, we want to stack a lot of life, and one easy way to do that is to get high max life rolls on 2 breach rings, or I just needed 1, plus the effect of Ingenuity helps a lot. That being said, as you can see here, I don't run a very high max life second ring here, so maybe you could get away with it if you don't have the budget for Ingenuity. But I'm guessing if you have the budget for Temporalis, you probably have the budget for Ingenuity. So those are the key pieces, 3 pieces. Then you want max life across your rings, belt, boots and gloves. So as you can see here, everything here has got high max life roll, high max life roll. Actually a bit low here. So like I said, it's not too hard to get there. All these pieces of mine, very cheap, because I wasn't sure whether this build would work with Infernalist, so I pretty much, obviously the 2 big ticket items here are the chest and the belt. Everything else was, I think, in the range of 1 div or less. I think only one of these breach rings can get expensive, and that's about it. Or if you get a free socket, Mahuxotl's machination, or however you pronounce it. So that's it gear-wise. Key thing, like I said, hit your resistances, get max life. Strength rolls help, so you can see here, high strength roll on one of these rings. Strength versus life, so that can help. Mana regen is handy. And then if one thing that this build really, I guess, opens up the potential for due to the open offhand and being able to run this shield is really stack rarity. So you can get rarity on your rings. I think it can go up to 50 plus ingenuity, plus get rarity rolls on your gloves and boots. You can really bump it up to, I think, 300 odd plus easily, if not higher. So that's the key benefit of this build in terms of the variation. You can get a high amount from this offhand particularly. Very quickly on the gems, pretty much the same as Jung's build. On Lightning Bolt Echo, basically doubles up the effect, considered casting, more damage, magnified effect, bigger area, plus the skills. One thing for bosses that you can do is you can swap out magnified effect for concentrated effect. Just basically you don't need the area damage for bosses, just give you a bit more damage. Alternatively, Blink, very handy, more cast speed on Blink. Those aren't aware, cast speed affects how quickly the Blink animation happens, so stacking cast speed as well on your rings if you can get it, although that gets expensive, helps. That's another reason why we pick up cast speed in the passive node, as passive tree as we showed. Cast and dodge, this is the important one for triggering everything and having the auto play style. Basically, as I said, one dodge automatically casts the sparks. We've got 2 sparks in here. The way this works is this one gets cast at the start of the dodge, this one gets cast at the end. That's how it works. Chaining, just for more potential for spark to crit, and acceleration, more projectile speed, so it gets the mobs quicker, again allowing crits to potentially happen quicker. So the whole point is to try and trigger the lightning bolts from Fire of Storms, which is where we've stacked our damage. One other interaction, just to point out, again, those aren't aware of the original build, Lightning Bolt's own crits can trigger itself, which is how the whole tech and build really works. Lightning Bolt also has increased shock chance, so this is why we can get away with using cast and shock rather than using cast on crit, which requires more spirit. What we've added in here is another spark, reducing its cost and forking, so again, more sparks happening, more chances for more crits. Ball of Lightning in Eye of Winter only purely for bossing, as you could see in the video here. We could quickly just recap. It's pretty much all I've got on my hotkeys, only use it for bosses. We throw out Eye of Winter, we throw out Ball of Lightning, and what that does is applies critical weakness, as well as shock and lightning exposure. So Ball of Lightning, very high shock chance, pretty much always guaranteed to shock. And when it shocks, it also applies lightning exposure with the support gem. Then we just increase the effect of lightning exposure, increase the effect of the shock, and just add more shock chance, just to guarantee things. Eye of Winter, pretty much the only important thing here is critical weakness. The big downside of using the Infernalist as opposed to the Blood Mage is we have a lot less crit chance, so any way to boost that, especially for important content like bosses, is beneficial. On that note as well, because the Infernalist doesn't have as much crit chance as the Blood Mage, it's worth picking up a high roll of crit chance, especially on your wand, and anywhere else that you can get on your gear if you can, as well as your focus if you do run a focus instead of stacking rarity. And like I said, I actually put in a proper focus for bosses just for the extra damage as well, just to make sure it goes down. And that pretty much covers it. I'll leave you with a little bit of a mapping showcase as well, which I believe I recorded here on a level 80 map. Let's see if we can actually get this loaded in. One other important thing to highlight, almost forgot, is jewels. So most importantly here, we really want to get the recover 2% of mana on kill. Other good rolls to get are, in combination, obviously crit chance. As we mentioned, we do struggle for crits, so any sources, extra sources are very beneficial. Energy shield from focus or energy shield percentage increases in general are a good bonus on top of that as well. But the key thing we really want is the recover mana on kill, and that is specifically for mapping. So as I said, mana can be quite hard to maintain without this. So I personally run, I think 1, 2, 3, only a 1% roll, so 5% mana on kill here, and that basically just constantly keeps your mana topped up while mapping, and in combination with mind over matter as well, pretty much if anything does get free energy shield and you're killing things quick enough, will sustain you as well.
One still lives.